Happy Monday. Welcome to Power Talk. This is Adrienne. I am your host, and I hope you guys are all fasting to get ready for Thanksgiving, and I hope you have plans for a happy, healthy Thanksgiving. I've got a really good show for you today. We might actually touch on some nutrition. My guest today is Dr. Meg Haworth. She's a survivor of sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. When she was a child, she is a survivor of drowning, over a dozen illnesses, divorce, miscarriage, and being struck by lightning. So she's no stranger to overcoming some of the worst scenarios that life can throw at us. But with each challenge that she faced, she used specific patterns and techniques to heal them. She found food and the power of the mind-body connection to make her well again. And over the last 2 decades, she's helped thousands to get well too, with holistic wellness programs, podcast series, blogs, online forums, 6 books on cooking and self-help. She's a celebrity chef. She's a food coach and the chief instructor at Whole Foods. So welcome, Dr. Meg.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, we're really happy to have you. I think timing is always perfect and divine. Meg has a new book called Get Well Now. And so what we're going to talk about today is going to be how our body reacts when something happens to it. And boy, mine is a classic example because of course, I'm an empath. I'm sure that doesn't help anything. And when things happen, if I'm not careful, I can internalize them and cause dysfunction in my body. So tell us about you, Meg, first. Let's let the viewers get a little bit to know about you. You got struck by lightning and survived?
Yeah. That happened pretty recently. That was about 4.5 years ago. I was struck on Venice Beach, California. And it's been a recovery. I mean, I'm still have issues from it. I've been told I will for the rest of my life. But I'm here. It's just amazing. So yeah, that was an intense thing. It damaged a disc in my lower back and the nerves and muscles in my legs, 3 areas of my brain. And, so it's been a recovery. So,
oh, man.
Yeah, but it got me out of the kitchen and back to doing this kind of work, which is where my heart was. My heart was in all of it. I loved cooking. I loved working with my celebrity clientele here in LA. It was so much fun, but I just felt like I had this PhD in transpersonal psychology, and I felt like this isn't really being used. I didn't feel like I was living the service, the highest service that I could, and that's the question I ask people to think about in their own lives is, what are you living the highest service that you could be living in your life? If you were put on disability by a lightning bolt, like I was, like what would you change about your life? What would you make different,
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting how spirit has a way of getting our attention to get us back on track when we veer off of the path. So, it's happened to me several times, not necessarily through an illness or an accident, although I think somehow or another the universe needed me to be back in Tallahassee. I was living in the North Georgia mountains, and 2 years ago, I was hiking in the mountains. I tripped over a root, and I fell, and I impaled my left eye on a stump. So, that got my attention, because I was in bed for a month, just kind of recovering from the trauma of it. And then once I decided to pick up the pieces and get on with my life, things have happened to get me back to my hometown. I've been away from here for 50 years, and I really needed to be back here to heal a lot of my childhood stuff. So that's how it seems to work.
Yeah, it's pretty brilliant the way that Spirit speaks to us in all these different ways, and I think that sometimes people see that as like I'm doing something wrong or I'm not on the right path, but I don't think that's true at all. I think it's just like, okay, you're on the right path. You've got everything you need to get to the next level. This impaling your eye on the stump is the thing that's going to get you to the next level and then help others get to the next level. It's like this really cool plan, right?
Absolutely. Because, a lot of people, I think, have actually benefited from the trauma that I went through because they were able to see that you don't have to allow something like that to completely derail your life. It's kind of how I do things, but I just kind of like, okay, I'm putting on my big girl panties and we're moving forward, and that's how I did it. And so many people have come to me later and gone, I don't know how you, whatever. I couldn't have done that. And my answer back is always, well, of course you can. Because you just have to prioritize, your life and really get back to basics and see what's important to you and move on.
Yeah. And there's so many different ways to do that, different steps to take. And I think that was one of the things that I had to be very thoughtful about when I went through the lightning strike, when I went through the dozen illnesses, including fibromyalgia. Every time I had another one, I looked at the pattern of what was I doing each time.
Yeah.
And that became my 10 steps to overcoming the effects of victimization, which is a free ebook I have, which we'll talk about how to get that later. But
okay. I guess, I don't know how many millions of years ago it was that I discovered Louise Hay and, how she talks about the emotions behind illness and problems with the body. But how does that work?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like to reference is the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. It's the largest public health study ever done that most people don't know about. It was done, it's ongoing. It's been going on for more than 2 decades at Kaiser Permanente in San Diego. And what they found was an indelible link between adverse childhood experiences like abuse and family dysfunction and illnesses later in life. And I had already kind of made this leap many years ago because I went through all of the with my illnesses. I went through doctors, and going in and out of doctors' offices for like almost a decade. And finally, after clearing away all of the toxic things in the environment and the food and all of it, there was still so much going on inside of me I didn't understand. And it wasn't until I found transpersonal psychology and started working with the emotions that way. And really, where are they located in the body? What are they thinking and feeling? How are they running the show unconsciously? So it's really delving into the unconscious mind, and which I think the body really is the unconscious mind. It holds the unconscious mind.
It definitely is in my theory of life. It really is where we process the feelings and the emotions. We don't do it at the soul level. The body does it. That's the body's job. And I feel like the body's very organized in where it stores all this stuff. It knows exactly if it's this thing, I'm going to put it in this chakra. And if it's this thing, I'm going to stick it in this acupuncture meridian point, and to me, that's just fascinating.
It is, and it's so fascinating how it's different for everybody. I mean, not everybody is going to compartmentalize their sexual abuse history in the same part of their body. There was one woman I knew that she had blinding migraine headaches, and she, when she finally got into the body and started listening to what was going on in her head, it came out that her abuser used to whisper into her ear, if you tell anybody about what I've done, I will kill you. So she had migraine headaches, and she would say, they're killing me. So it's those kinds of connections, and some people stuff the sexual abuse trauma in their uterus and they end up with uterine cancer, or there's just so many, or stomach cancer. There's so many different ways that we compartmentalize, and that's the secret sauce, I think. And the place I love to go with people is to help them make this discovery and release it from the body, and then move on with being lighter and freer and happier. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, and the body's very literal. Last week, I noticed over the weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, that it's like, oh my God, I'm getting a bladder infection. And, and it just kept building up. And luckily, I actually had an appointment at the doctor on Tuesday to go over lab work that I'd had done for my annual physical. And so when I went in there, I said, well, I've got kind of a hot mess today. I sort of stuck my finger in my eye this morning, and now my eye's all red. And I'm pretty sure I've got a raging bladder infection. And so they checked, and sure enough, I did. And I can't imagine why I would do that to myself. And then as I went home and processed it, I realized that I was so pissed off at someone. And apparently I didn't want to see that because I poked my finger in my eye on accident.
Yeah, there you go.
So the body really is literal.
And I love what you're saying, too, because that's really a great illustration of how the body's a metaphor for your experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's constantly giving you feedback, but most of us aren't listening, or we're running to the doctor and getting another medication to suppress a symptom. And that only lasts so long before it just spills over into, you got to do something about it.
Yes.
And that the inner work that's the place to go. If you can go there first,
mm-hmm.
Amen.
And you save yourself a lot of money, and ongoing detriment to the body. I mean, I did take antibiotics for the bladder infection, but, that's just over time, it tears up other parts of the body. So, it's much better just to do the inner work. And so had I caught that early on, I probably could have not had that bladder infection,
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So you have something called the whole person integration technique. What is that?
Yeah, it's an emotional release technique that looks at where these emotional archetypes are in the body. So, for instance, someone comes to me and the emotion, sort of go-to emotion is sadness. Mm-hmm. And so we look at where is that sadness located in the body? What is it thinking? What is it feeling? And I find that there are often layers, especially if it's the go-to emotion, like some people it's unworthiness. They just never feel good enough no matter how much they do. So we'll work with the unworthiness and find where it is located in the body. And we'll look at the human energy system, the chakra system, as a guide to understanding what's going on energetically. And so they're able to see the holistic mind, body, soul reasons why this is here so that they can understand it and release it. Because once they get to the point of understanding, they're like, oh, well, I don't need or want that anymore. I see how it's blocking me from this, or how it's draining my solar plexus, and oh, of course I have ulcers. So they start making all the holistic connection, which I think is critical. The way that society is set up is that we're broken down into pieces and parts, and that's not the truth of us. We're not just the physical manifestation of an ulcer and you go to the gastroenterologist. That's just one piece of the puzzle.
Yes. Yeah, and like you said, it's layers. There could be several different emotions that are involved in it. And a lot of times they're, like you said, subconscious until they build up like a volcano and finally explode. And then it becomes a physical manifestation or a temper tantrum, or you just, I've got to go kill somebody,
Yeah, there's so many ways that the effects of victimization show up. Mm-hmm. They show up as illness, but they do show up as acting out in all these different ways. And I think so many people don't understand that you can actually lift those illnesses, especially those mental illnesses like depression or post-traumatic stress disorder, can be lifted through really looking at these deeper inner parts in the unconscious. Because once they're brought to the unconscious and released, they're not holding you at bay anymore.
Right, exactly. So do you have some just simple techniques that some of the listeners and viewers might be able to take advantage of in their own particular situations?
Yeah. One in my ebook, the 10 steps to overcoming the effects of victimization, I have my process in there where they can work with those emotions themselves. And, if they feel stuck or whatever, they can call me or contact me for a free consultation. So there's that, but just a basic thing that people can just start doing right away. If you're sitting at your desk and you're feeling really stressed out, the breath is one of the most important things. I know you know this as a practitioner, is one of the most important things that you can do to help recenter yourself and help calm the central nervous system. Is just to close your eyes and just focus on your breath, just a simple in-breath, out-breath, or take that deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. It can make a massive difference. It doesn't sound like it should, but it does, Some people say the breath that's your spirit, and so it's like calling that in and just saying, okay, come on, help me through this situation. Help me release this tension, this anxiety, this fear, these emotions that are piling up right now. Yeah.
And actually I think that most people don't even realize that even a yawn can help, because sometimes a yawn actually resets the CNS. So it can, just by going like that can make a shift.
Exactly. There's just so many simple things you can do. Standing up and stretching is another great thing just to help you release some energy and relieve tension. Because so many of us are carrying it and think we have to go, do all the time.
Yeah. And we forget. We're a human being, not a human doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So tell us about how to get this ebook and how to contact you, because these are important tools.
Yeah, thank you. The ebook is on my website right up front. Just go to meghaworth.com. It's MEGHAWORTH.com. And with the ebook, you also get the ACE quiz from the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, where you can see things that might be contributing to your illness or persistent symptoms. Those often tip over into a diagnosis eventually, like persistent infections. If you're getting a throat infection every year or lung infections, you're always on antibiotics, it could be something that'll tip over into a chronic illness diagnosis. So this can help you kind of make those connections between your life experience and what happened to your body. And then also I have a free recipe book there as well. 5 anti-inflammatory recipes for busy people on the go.
Cool. Yeah, you wrote a book about gluten and dairy. And those are two things that I've had to eliminate from my diet to clear up a bunch of food-related stuff. How does food affect us, and how can we change stuff that we're dealing with, the stuff we don't like, by changing our diet?
Yeah, food is critical because it has the nutrition that helps our bodies run more efficiently. But there's so many foods that are on the market today that we know chemically will make us depressed. I mean, they actually have an effect on the brain. They'll make us depressed. They'll make us anxious. They'll make us fearful. So it's in getting those things out of the diet that you can start to see what's my own versus what is chemically being added to my body that is adjusting it in a way that's making me sick, that's creating these symptoms that are really detrimental to my health and forward movement in life. So that's the thing. I think that's the first thing people should do is just do an allergy elimination diet, releasing gluten, dairy, and all of the food chemicals. So there's just no food dyes or preservatives or additives, preferably sugar. I know that's a hard one for people but it's a highly addictive substance that can also create mood issues. So anyway, I wrote this book for people who want to or have to go gluten-free and dairy-free overnight. It's what happened to me, and there was nothing out there like 25 years ago.
Right.
With this. And so what I did is I thought, well, how am I going to have lasagna or pizza or birthday cake or, like all these things. So I converted a bunch of recipes. So they're not all 100% perfectly healthy, but they are all gluten-free. They're all dairy-free. And I tell you how to source ingredients that are high quality so that you're not, taking in even more toxins.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's so important because I think inflammation in the body really is a huge culprit behind a lot of the issues that we have. I've got a chronic knee problem. It was hurt many, many years ago. And over the years, what cartilage was left in there's gone. And so there's some osteoarthritis that's come in its place and things like that. And so I don't want to go get a knee replacement. I don't want to do surgery on my body. I don't do allopathic medicine unless I absolutely have to. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it because there's a time and a place and a tool for everything.
Yeah.
But I have found that by eliminating the things that inflame that arthritis, I'm pushing that away. I've also found something amazing called prolozone, which is an ozone injection that is also helping it a lot. So, I'm hoping that I don't ever have to have that knee replaced and I can just be active and do what I need to do and take my yoga class and, modify yoga as I need to. But, there's workarounds for everything.
Yes. And you just do what you can in that regard until, like you said, until you just know. And I think that's a huge piece of healing in general is calling on your own intuition to help guide you, help you make this step and then the next step and then the next step. I think it's so easy to get overwhelmed when you look at the big picture and think, how am I going to do all this? It's like looking up at a giant mountain and it just seems just so daunting. Like, how am I going to do that? So,
and you of all people have had to look at that mountain several times. And guys, look at her. She's gorgeous. She's vivacious. And she's creative because she's written 6 books. And, we can all learn by example. I think, once we see that somebody else can do it, a lot of times that gives us the courage to step up and try for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that's critical too, it's just that knowing that we can inspire other people with our own stories, and that wherever you are in your particular story, you can turn it around at any moment. You just have to call on that energy to make that decision to do the next thing. And I know a lot of people listening are probably frustrated because they've been doing that for a long time. Keep at it. It's so important to just keep making that decision towards health and wellness and self-love and self-care.
Yeah, because you're never going to know when you're going to do the one thing that is the key that turns the lock and everything shifts. And it does happen that way. I mean, anybody who's ever had a frozen shoulder or plantar fasciitis or any of those particular things can tell you that they did this, that, and the other, and they didn't seem to get anywhere, but they kept plugging away, and then one morning they woke up and they could walk again, or their shoulder worked, So, sometimes it's a cumulative effect of making the next right choice.
Exactly. I agree with you, and I think that the cumulative effect is very important because I don't think that those steps that they took and those things that they did were necessarily not good. Mm-hmm. They're just another step closer to the healing.
Right. And so it's important just to not give up and just keep on.
Yeah, like all things together.
That's right. So do you have a little final thing that you would like to share that you want to leave in the minds of our viewers and listeners, Meg, before we run out of time?
Yeah. The message I like to send to anyone listening, anybody struggling with illness, with an abuse history, with both things together, is that to take your healing into your own hands. It's the most powerful thing that you'll do. It's the most important thing that you'll do. And it can be a very simple next step. And that could just be picking up the phone and calling a friend who was raving about that chiropractor or her acupuncturist, or, to try something different. If what you're doing isn't working, it's going to continue not working. Mm-hmm. So find something that will. There's so many of us out there, so many modalities, so many beautiful ways to help heal the body.
Exactly. So again, folks, it's Meg Haworth, MEGHAWORTH.com. Her new book is Get Well Now. And thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your philosophies with the viewers. And until next time, remember, folks, those who take responsibility for their lives create the reality they desire. Ciao.